So recording has started. Let me now share the screen and we can begin. So if you can see my screen, just react with a thumbs up so that I can know whether to continue. Nice, awesome. So let's begin. I'm happy to have you all here today. We are going to learn how to get started with Python, Jupyter Notebooks, and GitHub in Visual Studio Code. So basically, we are setting up a data science environment in VS Code. We are going to learn how to uh, operate Python and Jupyter Notebooks inside VS Code, and then push our code to GitHub, still using VS Code. So just a little bit about myself. My name is Gregory Opondi. I'm an Alpha Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador, and I'm also an assistant Python instructor at PowerLearn Project. I do back-end web development with Django, and I'm also venturing into data science. So as I said, today we are going to get started with Python, Jupyter Notebook, and GitHub in Visual Studio Code, which is commonly referred to as VS Code. So just a disclaimer, the slides that may come after such a slide, are obtained from a Microsoft Learn module. And so Microsoft Learn is a website where you can get resources on pretty much anything you'd like to learn, be it programming, data science, Python, whatever language. You'll get some notes and even videos there in Microsoft Learn. So I'll drop a link in the chat for accessing Microsoft Learn. Yeah, so let's start. So these are the workshop objectives. By the end of this workshop, you should know how to install Python, know how to install Git, and how to create a GitHub account, and also know the difference between Git and GitHub. Then you should also know how to install and operate VS Code, know how to create Jupyter Notebooks in VS Code, and then now we'll learn how to integrate all this in VS Code. So we'll be able to work with Python, Git and GitHub, Jupyter Notebooks, and all from Visual Studio Code. So let's start with Python. What is Python? So when you go to Python's official website, you're going to be told that Python is an interpreted, object-oriented, high-level programming language with dynamic semantics. But what this just means is that Python is a cool language for writing code and developing cool software. I've defined these big words like interpreted, object-oriented, high level, and dynamic semantics. Wow, that's a tongue twister. I've defined those words in my blog, teaching us more about Python's definition. Let me just post that in the chat. Just a second. There you go. Let me also post the link to Microsoft Learn so that when you need to learn more about any topic you want to learn in tech, you can just go there. Although I'll also share these links at the end of the workshop. Yeah, so they're in the chat. Let me go back to presenting. Just a minute. So we've already gone through the objectives. Yeah, so why Python? So Python, first of all, is a general purpose language. So with it, you can build solutions for web, data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence. You can do automation with it. Python basically does it all. Python syntax is also relatively easy, so there are no need for semicolons or curly brackets. In some other languages, when you forget to put a semicolon in one line, you get an error in your whole code. So Python is easy to write and understand. Uh, Python is also open source. So open source means that it's built by the community and this makes it free. So how do I install Python? So first I'm going to walk you over these steps and then I'm going to take you through a live demo. So to install Python, first you're going to head over to Python's official website. You're going to click on downloads. Then you're going to select the operating system. So if you're on Windows, you click on Windows. If you're on Linux, click on Linux. If you're on Mac, click on Mac. And then this is going to download an executable file. So an executable file is just a file with a .exe file extension. Once this download is done, just run the file. Allow it to make changes to the computer. So one important step that you should not forget is to check the add to path box. If we do not add Python to path, our computer is not going to recognize Python code and you're going to have problems and errors. So after that, you're going to click on custom install, leave the defaults as they are. And once it's done, we are ready to run Python code. Okay, so let me show you how to do this. I'm seeing a hand up. Yes, Anthony, you can go ahead and ask your question.
I tend not to see the chat box. I'm wondering why. Yeah.
Is there anyone else experiencing this issue?
Yeah, I can
Yes, I can see.
Yeah. Okay, let me check the settings. Simon, your hand is up.
The chat is only available to team members.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I can fix that. Okay, so to avoid wasting time, since you joined with your details, I'll be sure to send you people the links through your emails. That's okay with you. Sorry for that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay, so let's continue. Yeah, so I was going to show you how to install Python. Yeah, so we saw that our first step was to go to Python's official website, just python.org. From there, we click on downloads. So if you're on Windows, you should just see this yellow button telling you Python, download Python 3.11.2. If you're on another operating system, you might have to click on your operating system and then click on the latest release, which is Python 3.1.2. So I'm going to click on this, and it's going to start downloading the executable file, which has a .exe extension. So once it's done, we're going to click on Open File, and it's going to ask me this. We are going to say Run. I'm going to allow it to run. Then, as I said, this step is very important. Please do not skip this step. Make sure you click Add Python.exe to path. This way we'll be able to run our Python code. If we don't do this, you won't be able to run our Python code, and we'll have to fix this by going into our environment variables, and we don't want to do that. It's a long process. So we click on Customize. We're going to download the documentation just when you need to refer to the documentation to learn more about Python. Pip. So what pip is a package management system. So it's going to manage the packages you download within Python, but you don't have to worry about this for now, especially if you're new to Python. And then it's also going to download the IDLE. I call it ID. It's the Integrated Development Learning Environment, which helps you just see what's going on in your code. So let's click on Next. You can click on Install Python 3.11 for all users if your computer or your device has multiple accounts and you want all accounts to have Python. I'm not going to click on that one, and then leave the rest as they are. And then it's going to start installing. So it's going to take a little while. Yeah, but this gives you time to follow up through in the workshop live. Meanwhile, if you have a question, now is the best time to ask. Yes, Simon, your hand is up.
Yes, I was asking if will you send us the video, because I missed some few steps. The recording, sorry.
Yes, the recording will be made available to you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So it tells us setup was successful. Yes?
Yeah, is it possible to also show us how to integrate the worker time to the Jupyter Notebook?
Sure.
Just a demonstration.
Okay, no worries.
Okay.
Okay, I'll do that at the end of this whole workshop. So now that the setup is done, you can click on close and then check if we installed it correctly. So to check, we are going to open our command prompt by typing cmd. Mine happens to be there already. Click on it and type python -- version. And it tells us Python 3.11.2. This shows us that Python has been correctly installed into our system. So one way of running Python code is through your command prompt. So you can just type in py and then press enter, and then it's going to tell you Python 3.1, 1.2, and all this. Then you can start running your Python code. So it's always tradition that your first line of code is print hello world. Oops. Then when you press enter, we can run. But then the problem with running scripts in the command prompt is that don't think you can save them. So once you've run them in the command prompt, that's it. When you close, it all disappears. But then when we run it in the idle that I showed you, it's going to download. Let's just look at it. So we can do the same thing in the idle. Print, then in brackets and quotes, we have hello world. Yeah. So with idle, we can actually save this file. And you can choose where to save it. I'll just click on the desktop and save. Oh, I should input a name. Hello world.
It's a hand up.
Yes.
Andy.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
There's a hand up by Candy.
Oh yeah, I had installed my Python earlier on, but mine is version 3.110. So I was asking if there's a way of updating it to 3.11 too.
Yeah. So in order to update it, so you see from 0.0 to 0.2, that's not a major update. It's called a patch. And in order to update it, you just follow the steps. But then when it opens the installation wizard, it's going to tell you update. So for us, we had install and then custom install, and we clicked on custom install. So for you, you're just going to click on update. Yeah, and it's going to update your Python to the latest version.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any more questions? Candy, your hand is up. Okay, so I'll just continue. If you have questions, just feel free to ask. So as we've seen, it saved my hello world file over here. But then the problem with the idle is that I really can't come back to edit the hello world. So let's say this time I wanted to say hello Gregory. I can't come back up here and then delete this world and write Gregory. I'll have to write another one. And that's really not efficient for writing Python scripts. That's why this one is mostly just preferred to, let's say, test your Python script. If you want to see what it's going to do, then we use the idle. So you see, I'll have to come down here again and type hello Gregory. So this is where the need for VS Code comes in. And we can look at VS Code. Just a minute. Just a minute while I open up the slides. Okay. So what is VS Code? Visual Studio Code is simply a code editor, and I like to think of Microsoft Word when comparing Visual Studio Code, because they basically do the same thing, but Microsoft Word is a text editor. So Microsoft Word provides you with the tools for editing text. You can delete unwanted text and add new text, change the format of the text. Kindly let us mute our mics so that we avoid disturbing others. Thank you. So as I was saying, Microsoft Word is a text editor. So the same way Visual Studio Code is a code editor. So what it does, it edits your code. You're able to delete unwanted parts. As we've seen in Ideal, we were unable to delete the world and replace it with Gregory. Well, when we have VS Code, this is possible. So why VS Code? Other than code editing that I've already said. So VS Code is a general purpose code editor. It offers support for many programming languages such as Python, JavaScript, TypeScript, C, C++, Java. So as a result of this, you can work on different types of projects. You're not limited to, let's say, web development or data science. You can do all of it in VS Code. VS Code also has an extensive library of extensions. So it has many extensions which makes our coding life easier, like GitHub and Jupyter extensions. So these extensions help us to, like GitHub, it helps us to commit our code to GitHub just from VS Code, which is way easier than using the command line. We're going to see this in a few minutes. Same with the Jupyter extension. So VS Code is also light. It doesn't take as much storage as other text editors, and it is open source. So just like I said with Python, it is built by a community of enthusiastic developers. So that makes it free for us to use. So again, I'm going to walk you through the installation process of VS Code, and then I'm going to show you a live demo. So how do I install VS Code? First of all, you head over to VS Code's official website, which is code.visualstudio.com. You click on the blue download button and select or select your operating system. So if it doesn't detect your operating system directly, you'll have to select your operating system. And then it's going to download an executable file, just like Python did. You'll notice that the installations have similar steps. Then it's going to start up the installation wizard again. And the same important step is there. Do not miss to add it to path. Then you also have to agree to the terms and conditions. Finally, VS Code should be installed and we'll be able to run our Python code in VS Code. So let's see how this is done.
There's a hand up.
Sure, can ask.
Okay.
Okay, the adding to path.
Mm-hmm.
What if I've already installed VS Code? Do I need to uninstall it and then ensure that it is added to path? Same for Python.
So if your VS Code works fine as it is, then it's already added to path, so you don't need to worry.
How do I know the fine part? Like
It's
working. Like it's working, but I haven't
yeah.
pushed anything from it to GitHub or to Jupyter.
No worries. That means it's fine. That means it's okay. So let's see how we can download VS Code. You don't even need to master the URL. You just type in VS Code, and then the first website that is going to come up is VS Code's official website, code.visualstudio.com. When we open this website, for me, I'm on Windows, so it's going to tell me download for Windows. You might be on a different operating system. So it might tell you operating system here, or you'll have to click this and choose your operating system. So I'm just going to click on download for Windows. and it starts downloading at the top. So meanwhile, I saw it was explaining here how VS Code is important. So you're able to do many things in VS Code and do it right. This is Twitter. These are devs tweeting about VS Code. And they're saying how VS Code is really useful to them because they can do anything. I like VS Code personally because it also has IntelliSense, what it calls IntelliSense. And so it's able to fill in code for you based on your past code. So it makes coding just really easy. So the download is complete. I'm going to run the file. Again, press run. Accept the terms and conditions. You can go over this at your own time. Next, I'll just store it in its default location. Next, call it Visual Studio Code. Next. So you see, automatically it adds itself to path, unlike Python where you have to click add to path. So make sure you add to path. Very important step. I also want to create a desktop icon so that I see it at the desktop. And we're also going to click on this so that we can also open it with our command prompt by just typing code. But once it's on the desktop, I don't think you'll need to use the command prompt. Then you can click install, and it's going to start the installation process. So if you have a question, now will be the best time to ask.
Question.
Yeah.
Since we are installing VS Code now and we had installed Python, do we need both?
Yes, we need both.
Okay.
Okay, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
While I was installing my VS Code earlier on, not right now, I can't remember if I ticked all the boxes. Is there a way that I can check?
I don't think there's a way you can check, but all those boxes. So the first one was just adding the icon to the desktop. Let me show you where it just adds it here. Okay, it opened automatically. Just a second. I want to close these slides. Okay. So here it is. It added it to the desktop. Then the other ones are just to help us so that if you don't want to open it with this icon for some reason, you want to use the command prompt, you can also use the command prompt. So the other ones are not that much important. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Yeah. So I have two instances of VS Code open. Let me close one and use the other. So when you open VS Code for the first time, it's going to ask you to set up by selecting your theme. I'm just going to click dark for now. If you want to sync from other devices, I'm not going to enable sync because I already have another VS Code, and when it's going to start syncing, it's going to take time. Yes, so you're going to allow opening command palette. So this command palette is where you can look for anything you want to do. And just mark done. And that's it. So as you can remember, we saved our Python file here in our desktop. Let's see if VS Code can open it up. So open file, desktop, hello world.py. Open. Yes, open. It's going to look a little bit like this. It copied everything, even the result. So right now we're not interested in this, just the code itself, which was print hello world. It copied everything as if it was like from the command prompt. So as you can clearly see, with VS Code, we can delete what we don't want, unlike with the ID. Can delete what we don't want, and then So it's going to ask, install the recommended extensions for Python. Yeah, so we want to install because this is what is going to offer support for our Python language. So we need to install Python. It's installing. Another extension we need to install, just makes our life easier, is Pylance. And make sure that by Microsoft. Pylance. Install, because those are like verified. So it's already installing automatically when I clicked on install. So these are the extensions that you are going to need to run our Python code. So while they install, any more questions?
It's an unrelated question, but would you, what operating system would you like somebody to use for data science? I'm currently using Linux.
And then please remember to mute your mics when you're not speaking or asking a question. So they're all installed. And we can go back to our Python file by clicking up here. And now what you're going to, okay, let me close this welcome text. These are just the extensions which we've installed, so we don't need those tabs anymore, and that one also. So now you'll notice that there's a play button here. When we click on this play button, it's going to run our code and give us a result down here in a terminal that VS Code also has. And it prints hello world. So this time, if I want to change this and just say I want to print my name instead, I can change it here and run it. And there we go. So when you want to open a Python file, let's just close VS Code and open it afresh so that I can show you how to open a Python file that you had already saved.
I have a,
Yes.
okay, so I had installed it already, but then it takes me to switch to pre-release version. What does that mean?
You had installed what, Python or VS Code?
The extension for Python.
Oh, it's already installed. So what is it saying?
I see there's a tab for switch to pre-release version.
No, don't switch to pre-release.
Alongside that.
Pre-release is like the beta version. So you're going to get like updates before they're officially released, and some of them might still have bugs. So don't switch to pre-release.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any question before I continue?
Yeah, I have a question. Yeah, I just want to ask, how many extensions are we downloading on the first code?
So today, by the end of this workshop, we should have Python and Pylance, which we've already installed. We're also going to install the Jupyter Notebook extension and a GitHub extension. So by the end of this workshop, 4. Yeah. But I'm going to walk you through installing all of them, so don't worry. So I was going to show you how to open a Python file that you had already saved. When you open VS Code.
As you do that, maybe I could ask a question.
Sure.
We saved a file from Python and opened it in VS Code. Can you do the reverse?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I think so. I've never done it before, but you can run a Python code in your command prompt that you wrote with VS Code. I've never tried opening it with IDLE before, but you can try that and see what happens. So usually automatically it opens to your most recent file, but sometimes you just need to tap open folder, go to desktop or where you saved it. I saved mine in desktop. And for some reason it's telling me no items match my... Oh, it's saying no folder open and I don't have a folder. Sorry for that. So most of the time, developers and programmers usually store their Python files in a folder. So we can just create a new folder. First, I want to show you like the normal way it's done, and then how to do it with VS Code. So I'm just going to call the folder VS Code. Put this inside VS Code, and now let me show you how it's going to look like. So one way you can do it is clicking on the Explorer, open folder, go to desktop, and then you're going to find the folder you just made, and then you click on select folder. So once that happens, just say yes, I trust the authors. After all, you're the author. Then you're going to find your hello world.py. So let's create a new Python file straight from VS Code. So you just right click around this area. Don't right click in this box. Right click inside this other rectangular area under the Explorer. And then you're going to say either if you want to create a new file or a new folder, both are possible. Let's create a new file. This one, we are going to call it calculator, let's say calculator.py. So anytime you're creating a Python file, make sure it has the .py extension. Otherwise, VS Code in your laptop or your computer is not going to recognize it as a Python file. So do that and press enter. Then now you have a clean state to write your code. You can just say print 9 plus 10, just as a demo. And then we can run that, and we see it's 19. So it works fine. And when I close VS Code and open my file explorer, we see it's also here. Now let me see if I can open it with idle as someone had asked. Open with, just let me move this tab. Open with, so it says with Python. Just once. Yeah, so if you saw it flash, it opened, ran the code, and then it closed. So it's better to use just a text editor. That flash was like, now what was happening? Another way you can run the code if you want to be slightly technical is with the command prompt. So you can just go to the command prompt, and then you change directory, it's cd, into the where it's found. So mine is found in the desktop first of all, and then once it's in the desktop, you can go into the folder. I named mine VS Code if I'm not wrong. Yes, and then we can run, what was it called? First we can run Python. No, we just say calculator.py.
Calculator.
Yeah, calculator.py. And there we have 19 because we did 9 plus 10. So yeah, that's, now we have Python, and now we have VS Code, and we also have extensions for Python. So let me go back to my slides. Okay, so I've showed you a demo of VS Code and Python. So we can go over extensions. What are the extensions? So you can just think of an extension as a plug-in that extends the functionality of your code editor. So it's going to help with language support, syntax highlighting. That's where you have your code in different colors showing what different words mean. So if it's highlighted, let's say with blue, it might mean that that's a keyword. And then if it's red, it might mean that it has an error. So it also helps in code formatting. So like in Python, the way you format your code is very important, because since you're not using curly brackets, we're going to use indentations, which is 4 spaces in Python. So even if you miss 1 space, it's going to bring an error. And that's why we use things like Pylance, which was an extension we installed. It helps in code formatting. So they help detecting errors in your code. And other extensions also perform different tasks. So like the Jupyter extension can be used to create Jupyter notebooks inside VS Code, because the normal way of creating and running Jupyter notebooks is usually, it's a web-based version, so it opens on your browser. But with the Jupyter extension on VS Code, it's just going to open inside VS Code or locally. We're also going to, the GitHub extension can also be used to commit your code to GitHub. We also have an Azure extension can be used to deploy projects from VS Code. Worker time extension, someone had asked for this demo. I'm going to show them at the end of the workshop. Can be used to track how much time you use to spend your coding. So we have very, very many extensions, and they all perform different functions. So which extensions will we need? For now, we've installed the Python and Pylance extension. And now we're going to install the Jupyter extension so that you can create and run Jupyter notebooks locally.
A question?
Yes.
Does the tab work instead of the 4 spaces?
Yes. Yes. So you you can either use 4 spaces or just use a tab to indent your code. But then even with the extensions, it's going to know when you're supposed to indent your code, and it's going to indent it for you. So unless you kind of like spoil it. So I can show you that real quick before we go on to the extension for Jupyter Notebook. So another shortcut that I usually do, so instead of going to Explorer and then looking for your folder, I just like holding to Control, and while I'm holding Control, I press K and O, and it automatically opens this. Then I can just look for where I saved it. In this case, it was desktop, and there. I click on it, select folder, it's there. So it saves time learning. It saves time learning your VS Code shortcuts. So now I was just going to show you how to indent your code automatically, or how Python indents code automatically. So don't worry about this I'm going to create a function. This might be new to most of you, but don't worry about it for now. In the Microsoft Learn modules, you can learn how to create functions in the Python module. So I'll share that with you in the emails. So you see now, when I click on enter, it automatically indents my code. So I really don't have to start worrying about the spaces, and that's why the extensions really come in handy. Yeah. So I was just showing you there's no need of creating a function right now. So I was going to, let's go back to the slides. I don't save my changes. Okay. So this is going to be another Microsoft Learn module. I'm going to share all the links after this, I promise, through your email. So this one, I got the module from the Microsoft Learn website, as I said. So the prerequisite is to have Python 3 installed locally. We've already done that. So we're going to learn how to create Jupyter notebooks locally. That means on our computer without having to go to the browser. Run a Jupyter notebook by using Python in VS Code. And then we're going to describe some of the ways on how to build a notebook. So we're going to go over this. This is actually a whole module in the Microsoft Learn website, so you can check that after this workshop. I'll send the emails. Introduction. So Although web developers build their websites by using tools such as Node.js, ASP.NET, or Java, and run their code locally by using tooling code editors such as VS Code, Python developers also have other tools at their disposal. So it just says that different languages have different tools, and Python developers really like relying on a tool like Jupyter Notebook, which is not only limited to Python, but it's mostly used by Python developers. So when you go to the module, you're going to be met with this scenario where you are on a mission on an international space station to do some delivery in space. And if you're not familiar with some of the many buttons, you're going to need something like a manual. And so we can relate this to Python code. Sometimes you might open Python code and you are not familiar with all of them. And it's just like if you're in the space station, it wouldn't be wise to test by pressing the buttons while you're mid-flight. In the same case here, you can't just test the Python and just say, oh, let's see what this does. So it's better to have a manual to help you navigate through the space station controls. So in Python, it's better to have what we call documentation. Documentation is how you write what your code basically does. And that's where Jupyter Notebooks help us. It's just like a notebook. So we are going to write this code does this and this code does that. So by the end of this, you should be able to create a Jupyter Notebook and be able to run a Jupyter Notebook using Python in Visual Studio and describe some of the ways to build a notebook. So what is the main goal? Yeah, we want to learn how to take advantage of notebooks as a tool to create more interactive learning experience. So we're going to start by installing the Jupyter extension. There are going to be many Jupyter extensions. Just install what is plainly Jupyter extension by Microsoft. I'm going to show you that shortly. Okay. So by the way, when you want to install the extensions, you're going to find them here. So here's the Jupyter Notebook. It just came automatically. If it doesn't come for you, you just type here Jupyter, and then it's going to come. So mine is already installed. I don't know if yours is already installed, but mine is already installed. I think it installed when I click to automatically install the ones for Python. It also came. And the way I also know this is that I can see a notebook here, and when I hover over it, I see Jupyter. So this is how we create a Jupyter notebook. Let's go back to our folder where we created our Python and our hello world and calculator, which only can calculate 9 plus 10, so it's not a really helpful calculator. Then you select folder. Now, to create a new file, you can either click on this plus here, or you can again just right click. Either way works. New file, and we can call this space manual to go with the theme provided. Space manual. Another thing, you need to know how to name your files. So it's really recommended that you don't have spaces in your file. So as you can see, instead of having a space, I had an underscore. Another thing, please don't start naming your file with a number. So let's say 1 space manual. If you really need to have a number, have it at the end of the name and not at the beginning. These are just best practices. So for Python, when we were naming a Python file, we saved it with
letters?
You're asking what about capital letters?
Like the S being capital.
Oh, no, that's okay. But I just prefer lowercase for everything. That's just my personal preference. So
there's no limitation as to case sensitivity in Python.
I was talking about naming the files. So when it comes to
in
Python,
terms of naming.
Yeah, so in terms of naming, case sensitivity, not really. But when you're naming variables, so that's a different thing. When you're naming variables, now that's inside your Python code, there are some naming rules that you need to know. Some of them are similar, like you can't have a space in your variable. You can't start with a number. Yeah, and so with case, they should all be lowercase unless it's like, yeah, they should all be lowercase and separated with hyphen, sorry, an underscore. That's what we call snake case. Yeah, so when we are creating a Jupyter notebook file, it's not going to be the same with Python. With Python, we did .py, short for Python, and it automatically detects that that's a Python file. But for Jupyter Notebook, we need to have a distinction. So we're going to save it as IPYNB. So the IPYNB stands for Interactive Python Notebook. Interactive Python notebook, and that's just how to create a Jupyter notebook within VS Code. So, you know, there are other ways of creating a Jupyter notebook is that you install something called Anaconda, and then with Anaconda, you open it from there and it opens it on the browser. So having VS Code really helps you to have all your files in just one place instead of having them open in different places. So here, as you can see, we have Python 3.1.2, and we can, so with the good thing about notebooks and the difference is, instead of just being able to run Python code like normal Python files, we can also write Markdown, which is going to help us document our code. It's now like the manual to our code. And so let me show you that in a bit. So maybe here I can create a function because it's sort of foreign, and then I'll document it with Markdown. So let me just do this really quickly. Oh my. And then I'm going to print low. So let's see what happens when we run this code. Yes. So if this is the first time you've created your... Hi, I'd like to request us to mute our mics when we join. So Paul, kindly mute your mic. Okay, we can continue. So I'm going to allow access. I need to type in my password, not really, because I'm not using the admin account. I'll just put in my fingerprint and then allow access. So what this is going to say, since it's the first time that we're running on a Jupyter notebook, it's going to tell us that we need the ipykernel package, of which we haven't installed. So there are different ways of installing it. The way we are doing it now, the way I've clicked, we're just installing it globally. So it's going to be everywhere. But then there's a way of installing it using virtual environments. But to keep this simple, we're just going to install it globally. While it installs, you can ask your questions.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, you've mentioned that you'll send some of this documentation on email, but I don't remember us entering our email addresses anywhere.
Yeah, so if you signed in to this Microsoft account, then I can just automate it so that it sends it to the emails. But you can, like, if you don't want to receive an email, you can also just say so, and I won't send it to you. But personally, it's not like I have access to your email addresses. Yeah. So now we see it's okay. This check mark says it's okay. and we can create another code block. So with Jupyter Notebooks, you can create these blocks. They're usually called cells, of which you can write now your different code blocks. So here I created a function that prints hello, and now I can just call on that function by saying print underscore hello. And if I run this, it will print hello. There we go. So now our kernel is working fine. We can change this function so that it matches with our theme of space. And let's say we can say the power on button. So let's say power on button. So when you click on the power on button, it should say hello. So I should just delete all of this. Power on button. Yeah. So now when we run this, oh, we get an error. Power on. Okay, it doesn't recognize this because I haven't run this first. So you need to run all your changes. So I can just click on run all, or I can run this and then run this. I'll just click on run all for simplicity. There. So our error goes away. So as I was saying, we can also create what is called Markdown, so that we can write our manual or documentation for our code. So the way we do this, you can either click on this one here, Markdown. When you hover over a cell, below it or above it, you can click on Markdown. Same for this one. It will be appearing. Yeah, so you create a Markdown where you want to create. I can create one here. So Markdown is just a special way we write to talk about our code. So you know how in WhatsApp, when you want to make something bold, you kind of put it in between asterisks or stars, and then if you want it to be italic, you put it between underscores. The same thing happens here. We just use special signs to denote what we want to do. So a hashtag, for example, just one hashtag creates a level 1 header. So that's like the biggest heading. And then when we use two hashtags, let me just show you how they look. A level 1, then level 2, then level 3, and they go all the way to level 6. So level 6 is the last. And what this does, these different levels, they just create different sizes of headers. So now you see how they look. We can also edit this cell because I was writing a manual on what that button does. So I can just say power on button. Then now I can just write normal notes. When clicked, the spaceship powers on and says hello. It's really that simple. So when we run all, this is how it's going to look. So we have our cell with our Python code. We have Markdown, where we have our header and then just our normal documentation. And then this is going to show what happens. So when you call upon the power on function, clicks hello, just as I've documented. So that's like basically it for Jupyter Notebooks. That's how you create them on VS Code. That's how we can integrate them with VS Code. It's just as simple as installing an extension and then having the kernel, because you'll be installing it for the first time. You'll have to install the kernel package. And then after that, you're pretty good to go to write Python code and Markdown. And the good thing about Jupyter Notebooks is, you see, when you're advancing data science and you're going to write code that is going to generate graphs, it can also be done in Jupyter Notebook. So you can have a visualization of your graph here in the Jupyter Notebook, and then you can use Markdown to explain what the graph is and how you came up with it and your thought process and everything, so that when somebody else is reading your code, they'll be able to understand. Yeah, so that's basically it. We can move on to, yeah, okay, I can save this notebook. Sure. We can move on to the next slide. Yeah, so we've learned how to create a notebook, how to document an element in Markdown, how to run your notebook. Yeah, and we've created a runnable code, that is code that can run. So we've done this exercise actually. We've created and run our notebook. So you can do this on your own at a later time, because I'm seeing that time is really running out. So let's move on to the knowledge check. So I want us to have this fun short activity. Okay, this won't work. This was supposed to work with the chat, but I can't seem to be able to activate the chat. It's only available for meeting members. Okay. Yeah, I can't seem to. Let me try one last time. If it doesn't work, then we'll just move on without that. Just a minute. Okay, so kindly check if you can now be able to type in the chat. Or if you can see anything I sent to the chat.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's sad. We'll just go on without the chat. But there's a Q&A. So that's what I've enabled, the Q&A, not the chat. Can you access the Q&A section though?
Where is it? Because I can't see it.
Yes, Q&A is now on.
If you're joining in with the laptop, it will be on top where you have like the other reactions and stuff. Q&A is now on, so we can use this as the chat basically.
Q&A is on, but you can't type.
You can't type.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't type.
And can you type? You see, we have Catherine typed and posted. Can you comment under her question, for example?
No.
Can you respond to it?
No.
It's not visible.
I think it's dependent on one's account because I've been able to comment on Tony Murungi's question.
Okay. Okay, so then we can just do this interactively. If you know the answer, you just speak it out. Because yeah, I was going to ask a question and then I wanted you people to type in the chat the answer. But then you can just speak, you can just shout it out, no problem. So the first question is, what file extension does a Jupyter Notebook have? So is the answer A, B, or C? There are incentives for people who answer. So
.ipynb.
I can't see them.
Share your screen.
You don't think the screen? Oh
No.
my, that's my bad. How about now?
A.
Yes.
So we'll just start over. What file extension does a Jupyter Notebook have?
A.
A.
Okay.
A.
Problem is when I share my screen, I can't see who's speaking. The next one. Yeah, so it's A, it's IPYNB. Bonus for who tells me what that means.
Interactive Python notebook.
Okay. Let's go on to the next one.
Jupyter Notebook.
So, which of the following answers include types of elements in an interactive notebook?
C. Sandra, C.
Who was the first one?
Mwenye amesema jina yake.
Jina yake ilikuja afterwards. I had someone before that.
Mazee.
Who was the first one? Maybe don't see. Okay. The next one. Yeah, so it's both of the above. We can make equations and UI elements in Jupyter Notebooks. We can also draw charts and graphs, which makes it really awesome. So the next one is, which one of the following types of content blocks are available in a Jupyter Notebook?
C. Kathy.
C.
Markdown.
Say it with your name.
I said C. Kathy.
What's your name? I'm only hearing C.
Kathy.
Anyway. So that was it. I wanted this session to be 1 hour, but I'm seeing we've gone past the 1 hour mark. So I don't know if I can set up a poll, but should we stop here and then create another session for the GitHub? Or would you just like to learn and continue with the GitHub? How to set up your Git and GitHub?
We can raise hands.
Later.
Later.
So I can set up a later date, right?
No, and those who would want to continue.
Okay, so let's just do this. If you want to continue, you can stay. I'll continue. If not, I don't know. Yeah, so I'll just continue because I see that there are people who want to continue.
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay, I'll continue. So this one is also a module from the Microsoft Learn. I'll send the links. Or I can post them in the... You said you couldn't see anybody's Q&A.
No, we can't see any.
Okay. And next time I'll adjust the meeting settings.
Hello.
Records.
Hello.
Yes?
In the recording kindly.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Safi.
Hello.
Yeah, if you're not speaking, you can just mute your mic.
Yeah, I just wanted to know what somebody said that we cannot access the message parts because of our settings. What can we do to rectify that?
It wasn't because of your settings, it was because of your accounts.
Yes.
Yeah.
What does that mean? How can we have it corrected?
So I'm doing this on behalf of an organization or within an organization. It's the Microsoft LAN community. So when you're a part of that community, you get invited to that organization, and so you can have meetings. So it was just a setting error on my side. I should have allowed everyone instead of just allowing the organization. So it passed me. Yeah, the fault is on my side.
How can we be part of that organization?
All right. Thank you.
Okay. So we can continue.
Before we continue, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Previously, I've been using Python notebooks to execute my commands. So if I want to switch to Visual Studio, do I have to install the real Python first and extend it to Visual Studio, or how do I do it?
So do you have Python installed on your machine?
No, I don't have Python. I just installed the Jupyter Notebook alone.
Yeah, so you do need Python because that's the kernel that Jupyter Notebook is going to use. The other Jupyter Notebook that you normally use, I'm sure it runs on the browser. Yeah. So when you're doing it on your machine with VS Code, it's running locally, and so it's going to use the kernel that is within your computer, and so you'll need to have Python installed for that. Yeah, Python 3 to be specific, or 3.11, the latest version. Cool. Any more questions before I continue? Oh man. Hi. Just confirm if you can still hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a question, follow-up
Yes.
on what someone asked. For instance, if I have an older Python and I'm already running VS Code and Jupyter, and it doesn't give me the option to update, can I uninstall the old Python, install a new one, and it would work, or would I have to redo the linkage?
So what will happen is, yes, you uninstall the old Python, and then you install the new Python, and then when you open VS Code, since already you still have your extensions there, when you try to run your Python notebook, what is going to happen is that it's just going to tell you to download the ipykernel package, just as it told me. And so you're just going to click on download, and that's going to be basically it. I don't think there's an extra step needed for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
I think it's more by request. Would you mind also touching on the virtual environments?
On the virtual environments? Sure, but yeah, after the workshop. It's okay. So let me share my screen so that you can continue. So now we're going to move into Git and GitHub, which is the final part of this workshop. And we're going to learn what Git is and how to install Git, what GitHub is and how to set up a GitHub account, the difference between Git and GitHub, how to commit without VS Code, and then how to commit with VS Code. So we're going to look at the differences between the two. So any questions before I start? Okay, so let me move quickly now because we're running out of time. So what is Git? For this one, I just prepared a short video because this person really explains it well. And just watch it and listen. For some reason, the video is not playing. You can just head over to YouTube and watch it there. Just a second. Sorry for that. I don't know why the video wasn't playing. So just open up YouTube real quick. Sorry.
Greg, your sound is not on.
Sorry. Yes. You can't hear.
We can't hear the video.
Oh, okay.
That's good.
Like you can't hear it at all, or the volume is low.
At all.
Okay, let me see how to fix that. So just a minute. Okay, let me try that again. How about now?
We can hear you fine, but not the video, unless it's just me.
If you can hear the video. Pardon?
I can't hear you.
It's okay.
You can't hear me or the video.
I can hear you, but the video. Yes. Thank you for the correction.
Is there anyone who can hear the video? If you can hear the video, give a thumbs up.
No, I can't hear it, but did you enable the option for share sound?
Let me check which option.
When you want to start sharing the small box you can click.
Sorry for that. So you said that when I want to share the
sharing again, and then it will ask you whether you want to share tab or a window. And then there is a small icon box you can take to share sound.
Yeah, thank you for that. Let me try that again. Sorry for that.
So what is Git and why is it so popular? Git is the most popular version control system in the world. A version control system records the changes made to our code.
Published now. Yeah, how about now? Could you hear the sound?
Yes, we could.
Okay.
Yep. Awesome.
Yes, we're good.
Thank you.
We're good now.
Let's watch the video.
So what is Git and why is it so popular? Git is the most popular version control system in the world. A version control system records the changes made to our code over time in a special database called repository. We can look at our project history and see who has made what changes, when, and why. And if we screw something up, we can easily revert our project back to an earlier state. Without a version control system, we'll have to constantly store copies of the entire project in various folders. This is very slow and doesn't scale at all, especially if multiple people have to work on the same project. We would have to constantly toss around the latest code via email or some other mechanisms and then manually merge the changes. So in a nutshell, with a version control system, we can track our project history and work together. Now, version control systems fall into two categories: centralized and distributed. In a centralized system, all team members connect to a central server to get the latest copy of the code and to share their changes with others. Subversion and Microsoft Team Foundations server are examples of centralized version control systems. The problem with the centralized architecture is the single point of failure. If the server goes offline, we cannot collaborate or save snapshots of our project. So we have to wait until the server comes back online. In distributed systems, we don't have these problems. Every team member has a copy of the project with its history on their machine. So we can save snapshots of our project locally on our machine. If the central server is offline, we can synchronize our work directly with others. Git and Mercurial are examples of distributed version control systems. Out of all these, Git is the most popular version control system in the world because it's free, open source, super fast, and scalable. Operations like branching and merging are slow and painful in other version control systems like Subversion or TFS, but they're very fast in Git. We'll talk about this later. So Git is almost everywhere. More than 90% of software projects in the world use Git. That's why almost every job description for a software developer mentions Git. So if you're looking for a job as a software developer, Git is one of the skills you must have on your resume. You should know it inside out. You should know how it works and how to use it to track your project history and collaborate with others effectively. If you want to learn Git, I have a 1-hour tutorial here on my channel. The link is below this video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this.
All right. So that was a really descriptive video. Anyone who can share with us what they've learned from the video?
Git is a version control system that aids with tracking history and teamwork by basically keeping a repository of the code that one does, and it can either be centralized or distributed. That's a summary.
Yeah, so you basically said it all. It's a version control system. It helps with teamwork and tracking changes. And what was the last point again?
Centralized and distributed.
Yeah, it is decentralized and distributed. So let's just go over that. and how to install. Just a minute. Yeah, so we can continue. So we've said that Git is a distributed version control system. So distributed means that everyone has their own copy of the code base. And then version control just means that it helps keep track of the changes that we make to the code base. So it keeps details such as who made the changes and what change they made. And then, so why do we use Git? While there are other version control systems out there, Git is the most popular. This is because it makes collaboration with other developers easy. As I've said, it's the most popular version control system. It's fast and it's open source. So again, free. So let's go over how to install Git. There have been a lot of installations. This should be the last one. Kind of. So how to install Git? I'm going to head over to Git's official website, which is git.scm.com. Click on the download for Windows if you're on Windows, or select your operating system. Make sure that you click, if your machine is a 64-bit machine, you click on 64-bit setup. If it's 32-bit, click on 32-bit setup. If you're on Linux, your machine should already be having Git. So you can check by going to the command prompt and just typing git -- version. It should be there. If you're on Mac and you don't have, you'll still have to download from the official website. So again, the steps are pretty similar. It's going to download an executable file, which will run, and after that, it's going to install everything. Again, we're going to make sure that we've just added it to paths so that everything works. Then we're going to finish there. So, sorry, let me first show you the installation process. Let me just share my entire screen so that I stopped switching between tabs. So you're just going to open your browser, type in Git. Again, you don't have to have the URL mastered. Then it's going to be the first one that comes. Open it, and right here, you're going to see, let me just make the screen large enough. Right here, you're going to see download, and you're going to click on download for Windows. So my device is a 64-bit, so I'm going to download this one. If you're not sure how to check whether a device is a 64-bit or a 32-bit, just come to the settings. Just come to your settings, and then you search about, and then it's going to bring device specifications. Oops, sorry for that. And then it's going to be here, system type 64-bit. So I'm going to download the 64-bit version. Not yet done downloading. Anyone who has a question while it downloads?
What if I...
Please go ahead.
I wanted to ask, what if you click on the first download, which says is the latest release? Will it work just the same way like the standalone installer that you downloaded?
So this one here?
Yeah.
So it says the latest for 64-bit version. This is the most recent maintained. I don't know if it's a setup. Yeah, but it most probably is going to work the same. You can just click, since you haven't run it yet. If you're not sure, you can just still install this one. But I'm pretty sure it's the same. I can just check by downloading both of them. So you see, it's the same thing. Both have the .exe file. So I can just cancel it. It's going to be the same thing. So once it downloads, you open.
I had a question.
Yes, yes.
My question is, sometimes you have like an account that you have opened on the browser. Does it work the same as the one you install?
Relies on the endless.
An account. What do you mean by an account?
A Git account on the browser.
So the Git account on the browser that I'm aware of is probably a GitHub account and not a Git account. The one that I'm aware of. And so GitHub works on top of Git. So it uses Git commands to it uses Git command to allow you to push your code to Git. And we're going to go over that in a bit. So that's like the difference between Git and GitHub. I kindly mute your mic if you're not speaking.
I got a question.
Yes.
What's the difference between Git and GitHub?
Yeah, we are getting there in a few minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's continue the installation process. We're going to click on run.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Though it's a bit not really related to Git, I'm not sure. So if for the articles we were to do, how is this that you can share a link for submission, like the sharing of the link of that article so someone else to view it?
Yeah, so for your case, I know you're doing a boot camp. Not everyone is doing the same boot camp in this call. Yeah, and in that boot camp, I'm also there.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think you're just going to once you write the article, it's going to go to the browser, and then you just share the browser link in the form. Yeah, so it's not related to Git when it comes to articles. Yeah.
Okay.
So once you click on, once you run the executable file that you download, this is the setup that you're going to get. You're going to click on next, and then next again. Just let it store itself where the default location. It says this exists. I think I already have Git. Yeah, but I'll just install anyway. I hope it won't clash. Leave everything as the default. Yeah, let it be Git. Choose your default Git editor. Just leave it as the default. So this one is asking you whether you want your branches to be called, your main branch that is, to be called master, or you can specify. So usually in my other Git account when I was setting it up, I left it as master, although GitHub has transitioned into main, but I'm just going to let it as the default still. Although if you read here, it says
back kidogo kindly.
Sure. Here.
Why didn't you choose VS Code there?
I just left it as the default. You can choose VS Code if you want.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I don't even have Vim, so it's still going to be VS Code. You can choose.
And if you choose, sorry.
Just do it your way so that let's just do it your way kindly.
Okay.
And if you choose, so for example, if you choose Vim and you don't have Vim, it will automatically go to VS Code because that's what you have. But if you have, for instance, on my computer, I have Notepad and VS.
Yeah. So if I leave it as the default and I don't have Vim, it will automatically go to VS Code.
Okay, so if you have 2 out of the ones listed, what takes preference? Ama unachagua tu?
Yeah. So I guess if you have 2, you choose the one that you actually like using.
Okay, thanks.
Actually, it's just up to you, really. So let me even just pick VS Code then you can go on with that. Next. Then here, as I was explaining, usually when we are working with Git, we use branches, and when you're working in the main branch, so a branch is just some way in which you can create another version of the same code base, for example. So if you want to create a secondary branch to try out a new things or create updates, you can do that. And then if it works okay, you can merge it to the main branch again. So when we talk about the main branch, in the past, it used to be called master. That was the main branch. But now people are changing to main. So you can override the default and call it main if you want. GitHub uses main, or you can leave it as master. And then every time you're committing, you can choose, you can write a command that puts it to main. So you can also just have it as main here. And then here we leave the default so that this one adds it to the path. So and we can like use git command from any terminal, not just necessarily git bash. And then here we just leave the default, 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 default. Here don't check anything, leave it as is, default. So okay, for me I'm getting an error because I already had a folder for Git. That's why I'm getting the errors. But for you, this should download fine. Yeah, but I believe before this, I had deleted the Git. Sorry for this. Let me just stop sharing. I thought I deleted the Git folder, so it's not going to bring an error, but it turns out it is. Let me see what I can do about it real quick. If not, I think we can just have another session at a later time because time has run out and I'm getting the error in the installation process. So was anyone following along?
Yeah, I was, and it has installed successfully.
Good. So yeah, it should install successfully. Mine is having an error because I had Git before that. Yeah, so unless you don't mind sharing your screen, you can end it here so that I can debug the error and then maybe we can have another session later on. That's all okay with all of you.
Hello.
Hello, hi.
Hello, hi. Yeah, you said something about sharing the video and links. So I don't know when.
I really can't hear you well. I don't know if you can get closer to your mic.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, slightly better.
I'm saying, you said something about sending the video, this video now, like the recording and the links, so we could share with people who attend, and if you want to refer back to some of the things you said. So I don't know, when would you send it? How can we get it? So that's my question.
It won't take long. By the end of tomorrow, all of you should have the email.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm very sorry about the unexpected error. I really didn't expect it because I deleted Git. Happens. So I'm going to have to debug that. It's just part of a developer's life. Yes, Mark. Okay. You ask first.
Sorry. So I use not Jupyter Notebook from Anaconda. I just launched it direct from there. I upgraded mine last week. I don't know if all of you are having the same problem. Whenever you launch it nowadays, it doesn't open in a browser. It just opens in let's say a Sublime text or whatever editor I'm using. Do you guys have a solution for the same?
So you're saying when you use Anaconda, when you're using Jupyter Lab for Anaconda?
You launch your notebook, your Jupyter notebook from Anaconda, like the old version. Yes.
So I'm using, I don't use Anaconda, but I used to use like, I downloaded Anaconda recently, but it was still opening on the browser.
What is he asking? Can he come up? Maybe I can assist.
Whenever I launch my notebook from Anaconda, it doesn't open from a browser. It opens in a Sublime text. It just gives you the code. I've even tried to check if the extension is like for Python or whatever, but it doesn't. It's not for Python. So do you have a solution for this problem?
So you mean when you are opening Jupyter Lab on Anaconda, the Anaconda navigator, it opens on Sublime Text instead of the browser?
Yes.
That's a bit tricky, but maybe you remove the text editor first, then you try opening it up. You see if it will pick the default to be the browser.
Okay.
I'm not sure about it though.
Okay.
Mark had raised his hand. I don't know if it was by mistake. If you have something to ask or say, you can do so now.
Hello, hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Awesome. So my apologies, I kind of dropped off in the course of the session. Okay, mine was just to share a resource on Git and GitHub because I think that was the main cause of discussion. Hope I'm not beyond the scope of the discussion.
Yeah, so it was like our third point. We were doing Python with VS Code. That was our first one. Then we did Jupyter Notebooks with VS Code. That was our second one. And then our third one was Git and GitHub.
Okay, so allow me to share because I kind of have a number of resources. So a course on Git and GitHub, I hope it will be of importance to a few.
Sure.
So there's this course by, okay, allow me first to share the original course. It's on Udemy. This is the original course, the paid course. But now allow me to share the a link to the entire course where one can access it because it's unlisted on YouTube by Udemy, where only they with the link can access. So allow me to share part 1. That's the best, actually the most rated course on Udemy, the best. Actually, it has appeared in a number of resources. It's one of the best courses in Git and GitHub. You cover everything about Git and then everything about GitHub. So it has been divided into 2 parts. That is part 1 on YouTube. Then let me share part 2. It's unlisted, so only they with the link can access. That's why if you go and search for Udemy on YouTube, then you'll not find it. So allow me to share part 2.
And then I know that people can't see the links you're sharing now because they don't have access to the chat, but I've promised to share it with them.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. My apologies, but also they can. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, but I've shared the links on the chat, so I think
I'll send it to them.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay, so do we have any comments, additions? Thank you, Mark, for your contribution. This will be really helpful. I think when we go over this, we won't even need to. Someone else is sharing the screen. But we won't need to. Yeah, I can see that we can't access the chat. But I'll try to send it to you people personally. I hope that will work. Yeah, so anybody else with a question, comment, addition before we end? There was someone.
Let me ask now, maybe if we can't get to be able to join the next meeting, will you share the resources so that we can complete maybe integrating VS and Git?
Sure, I will.
We'll appreciate that. And,
okay.
And thank you so much for the session.
Yeah, no worries. I'll try to hold more sessions and I'll be sharing with you people. Yeah.
Question? I'm not sure if this had been asked before.
Yeah.
Is there a recording that will be shared with us for this session?
Yes, there will be a recording that will be shared with all of the attendees.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. So I guess if there's no other question, we can end the call now. Thank you for attending. There was one person who had asked how to link worker time with the Jupyter Notebook. So I can just go over this briefly. If you already have worker time linked to your VS Code, then when you type on Jupyter Notebook, it's going to track it. So it's going to be automatic. There's nothing else you need to do once you have your extension. Yeah.
Quick one. You are to briefly touch on the virtual environments, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So, okay. It's been a while since I worked with a virtual environment, but let me share my screen. And I see. So actually, so who's asking that question?
It's me, Tony.
Tony. So do you know how to activate a virtual environment?
Yes, I do know how to activate. So my question comes in where, assuming I have a project concerning per se a machine learning model, then I want to do another project, web scraping, for example, for instance. So do I have still to like download the virtual the venv once more every now and then when I want to do another project?
Yeah. So
to avoid the collisions.
For every new project, you have to create a new virtual environment, and you create the virtual environment inside the project's directory or inside the project's folder, so that the dependencies or the packages that you install within that folder do not spill over to, let's say, another folder and clash. So that way you've installed them inside a virtual environment. They're sort of like trapped there. But if you don't use the virtual environment and install them globally, and then let's say when you're doing another project with a package, with the same package, but it's like more updated, it might sort of clash, like the way you've seen my Git doing. Yeah. So that's the importance of virtual environment. So it's just advisable whenever you first of all, you don't install packages globally unless you know like each and every project is going to use it. Then it's okay to install it globally. Then you just install them in your virtual environments.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope that's clear.
Yeah, that's clear. But if you don't mind me asking, you said it was a long time since you used virtual environment. What do you use?
No, as in, okay, it's been a long time since I've been coding in general, because like school has been coming in the way and I don't code in school. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I have one more question before we leave.
Sure.
Is Git bash the same as Git?
So Git bash, you know what bash means? Bash is a born again shell. So Git bash is the command prompt that you can use to run your Git commands. But you can also use the normal command prompt in your computer. You can also use the terminal in the VS Code. But Git bash comes with its own command prompt. Yeah. For running Git commands.
So it's the same.
Git is like the system, and then Git bash, you can use it to run it. So it's more of like, you see, when we installed Python, it also came with with a command prompt. But then now Python is the language, and then the command prompt is just a way to run the commands from that language. So it's the same case with Git and Git bash. Git is sort of like the version control system, and then with Git bash, we can use it to run commands, run Git commands. Yeah.
Just to add on that, if you don't mind. So basically, Git is just the system, the version control system where you can track the the code from anywhere. You can track it from VS Code because you can use Git from VS Code. But now the Git bash is now the CLI, just the command line interface where you can, just as you've mentioned, it's just a command line interface that comes together with Git, because you can also ignore installing Git bash as you install Git into a laptop or machine. Yeah, or you can eliminate Git bash as you install Git, because you can still use Git in VS Code. So Git bash is just a system that comes hand in hand with Git bash is just a system that comes hand in hand as you install Git. Yeah.
Because I'm trying to install Git and then it tells me that bash closing is required. So setup cannot continue until you close at least those applications in the list that are marked as closing is required, which is bash.
So let me ask, did you have Git before installing Git again? You were installing Git like you were following the process with me?
Yeah, yes. I had Git bash installed before, not Git.
Not Git.
Yes.
Yeah, so what happens is that when you install Git, it installs it with Git bash. So maybe, is your Git bash open?
No, it's not open.
Try opening Git bash or any command prompt for that matter, and then just type git space dash version.
I type git
Space, let me see if I can share my screen.
Yeah, it shows Git version 2.38.
Yeah, so it means you already have Git, so there was no need for you to install Git. So you can just cancel the installation process.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Any more questions? Okay, so if there's none, I'd like to end the meeting here. I'd like to thank you all again for attending. I'll be sure to send the resources and the recording. Thank you and have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, and you too.
Thank you, and you too.
Good day, everyone.
All right. Allow me to end the meeting now.